Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers wanted me to talk about the rise and fall of Cartoon Network. Now, Cartoon Network is a cable channel that came out a couple of months after I graduated high school in 1992 and was founded by Betty Cohen and Ted Turner and was designed to be a channel that was primarily focused on animated series and cartoons, and a cartoon channel that was supposed to be focused on small children. Now, the original content for the Cartoon Network was coming from Turner's catalog of Hanna-Barbera animation, such as Yogi Bear, such as the Super Friends, such as shows like those like Secret Squirrel, and many others like Josie and the Pussycats, and many other Hanna-Barbera animated shows like Scooby-Doo, not to mention the catalog of Warner Brothers old cartoons such as Bugs Bunny, and the MGM cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Merry Melodies. These were the foundation for the platform for the cartoons on Cartoon Network, along with many canceled Saturday morning cartoons that hadn't been seen in years, such as the Snorks, such as the Smurfs, such as many other cartoons like Foo-Fur, and many other cartoons like Real Ghostbusters. I mean, the Cartoon Network was originally meant to be a channel that would basically feature a lot of these cartoons that many kids grew up with, that they could share with their children, and a place where kids could get to see animated cartoons all the time, at any time during the day. So Cartoon Network started out as a place for cartoons, and it had competition from channels like Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel, but its main focus was mostly focused on giving people a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week platform to see most of these old cartoons people hadn't seen in years, and that was the main focus of Cartoon Network. And as Cartoon Network came up throughout the 90s, started to evolve, they started to creating their own cartoons at Cartoon Network Studios to appeal to the children of the millennial generation. And a lot of millennials basically grew up with shows like Dexter's Laboratory, Cow and Chicken, Johnny Bravo. And I remember the craze for the Powerpuff Girls in 2000, where they had the Powerpuff Girls cereal and the Powerpuff Girls merchandise. And all these cartoons, including Ed, Edd and Ernie, the Kid, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and many other cartoons came on that channel and became part of many millennials' lives. And that was the main foundation of Cartoon Network as it was growing as a platform. And as it was growing as a platform, it started to create a Toonami block of cartoons that introduced a lot of kids to anime. And as it introduced kids to anime, we got to see blocks of Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon all together. And we started to see that block in the early 2000s of cartoons. And this whole focus on Cartoon Network basically focused on this type of content. And as it looked to try to further explore animation, they created the Adult Swim block of cartoons. But the thing that really started to limit Cartoon Network were two things. One thing was the incident as related to the Boston Mooney Mite panic, and the other that really did Cartoon Network in was the lack of vision. Now, Cartoon Network had been running very well from 1992 to about 2007 under the leadership of CEO Jim Samples, who basically had Cartoon Network running like a machine. And as he had Cartoon Network running like a machine, creating a lot of original content that was starting to reach people, stuff like related to their Adult Swim, like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, he decided to go out here and contract a guy to go out here and participate in a promotional campaign to sell their Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie out here. And this whole campaign basically turned into a controversial disaster because this artist began creating these LED icons that were that were called Mooney Mites and basically posting them up in areas. And sadly, people in Boston started to see these light up LED pictures and started to believe that they were improvised explosive devices, and this caused a panic throughout Boston as related to this whole campaign. Now, this was just a marketing campaign to try to get people's attention for their Aqua Teen Hunger Force animated movie, but the whole thing is that this whole Mooney Mite thing came just a couple of years after 9/11, where people were really, again, nervous about terrorism in this country. And since people were nervous about terrorism in this country, they began to panic when they saw these Mooney Mites, which were basically light up art forms to try to market and get attention for Cartoon Network. But these light up devices basically were seen as a threat to people, and seen as a threat to people as related to possibly being bombs. And again, people were kind of scared because, again, we just had 9/11 in 2001. We had the anthrax incident in 2002, and people were not thinking about this as something that would be used for marketing. They saw it as a possible improvised explosive device. And the whole controversy regarding this 2007 panic basically led to the CEO of Cartoon Network at the time, Jim Samples, being forced to resign. And once he was forced to resign, that's where the other problem with Cartoon Network began, as related to its complete lack of vision. Now, Cartoon Network's other problem was its complete lack of vision, because yes, Ted Turner wanted to create a Cartoon Network, but the whole problem with Ted Turner's vision was it was focused on seeing cartoons as something for children, when the art form of animation is something that people of all ages enjoy. Now, the American perception of animation is a big problem with seeing the entire genre of American animation grow. And while we had a golden age in the 1990s in American animation, with Disney, Warner Brothers, and Fox Studios creating lots of great movies, like the Disney golden age of films like The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast over at Disney. And at Warner Brothers, we got great movies like The Iron Giant and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And at Fox, we got Anastasia. The sad part is that these films were primarily focused on children and really did not push the envelope for the genre of American animation to compete with Japanese anime. Now, when it comes to Japan, animation is seen in a completely different light, and animation is seen as something of an art form for audiences of all ages. And this is why we can get to see Japanese anime that focuses on more dramatic content and shows us different types of stories. I mean, with Japanese anime, you can get to see something like Golgo 13, The Hitman, or Ghost in the Shell, which has a more dramatic story. And you can explore more adult themes in Japanese anime that you would not see shown in American animation, where they primarily focus on either musicals or some sort of program designed to appeal to children. You really don't get to see them delving deeper into storytelling and to exploring different genres the way they do in anime. And this was one of the things that basically impeded Cartoon Network's growth as a platform, because the whole thing is that Americans' perception of animation is just limited to children's animation. And while they make efforts to try to make animation appeal to older viewers, such as Batman Beyond in the 90s, Disney's Gargoyles, and other shows that like Invasion America, which was a really fumbled attempt at animation, and movies like Titan AE, and Disney trying to do things like Treasure Planet, American audiences really don't understand how great the art form of animation is because we've been conditioned to believe that animation is something for children and not the art form that Japanese people see it as. So that was one of the things that impeded Cartoon Network's growth, was that we couldn't see the animation again evolve past children's programming. And yeah, we got great shows like the Powerpuff Girls and other shows, but we really never pushed that envelope, even with Adult Swim, because Adult Swim really doesn't push that far. I mean, compared to what we get in Japan, that whole Adult Swim doesn't really push as far as related to artistic style or storytelling, and it's a big problem over with American animation that impeded Cartoon Network's ability to grow as a network. This was a thing that, along with the compounded with Jim Samples resigning from Cartoon Network due to that 2000 bomb scare, leading to the hiring of two inexperienced individuals in Stuart Snyder and Christina Miller, that started the, again, continuing decline of Cartoon Network, because Cartoon Network basically declined because it had stagnated creatively because of Americans' perceptions of animation as related to box office failures like Titan AE, Treasure Planet, Home on the Range, and many other films like The Iron Giant failing at the box office. That was one part of the thing that stalled American animation. The other was this 2000 bomb scare that basically led to the decline of Cartoon Network, and then the hiring of Stuart Snyder and Christina Miller, two people who had no real experience as related to running an animation network, but they were basically hired because they needed to find a person who was an executive to fill the position, but the person who they hired to fill the position did not know how to curate content, and you really need someone who knows how to curate content if you're going to help a network grow. When it comes to networks, you have to curate that content that will generate the audience and build the audience. You have to curate content that will appeal to audiences. And sadly, when it came to these two executives, Stuart Snyder and Christina Miller, they didn't know how to curate and create great animated content. They didn't know how to create rich and diverse animated content. And sadly, because they didn't know how to do this, what they did was try to take Cartoon Network in a bad direction that mirrored that of many TV networks like CBS, NBC, and ABC in the mid-90s, where they decided to stop producing children's animated programming on Saturday mornings or Saturday morning cartoons and decided to focus more on news. And Stuart Snyder and Christina Miller, having no experience in curating animated content, decided to take Cartoon Network down the road to reality television and live action shows. Now, live action and reality should have no place on a place like Cartoon Network. Again, a place like Cartoon Network is supposed to be a place for cartoons to be the center of things, and this basically made the entire network jump the shark, because if you have a Cartoon Network, its focus should be primarily on cartoons, and its whole platform should be focused on creating animated content. But sadly, Cartoon Network basically wound up falling apart as a channel, and as it started to fall apart as a channel is because they focused on these reality shows and focused on creating these reality shows and these shows that basically were live action, and that ran counter to the original mission of Cartoon Network, which was again supposed to be a network that was supposed to be focused on just animation, on cartoons. But that in and of itself was a flaw from Ted Turner. He was just looking to make a kids channel, but the whole thing is he should have been focused on making an animated channel and making animation the center of that channel. That would have made Cartoon Network a far more competitive platform, because if you focus on the art form of animation, this is what's going to draw in not only the kids, but draw in many of the lovers of the art form of animation, and would have opened Cartoon Network up to creating different kinds of content different kinds of content that could have had a bit more adult themes that could have been shown as things like movies or a more edgier television series that showed us richer, more complicated characters. We could have developed something of a platform where we could have had, again, the children's cartoons in the day and had some more edgier, more adult themed cartoons like Disney's Gargoyles or Batman the Animated Series or Batman Beyond, or fresh original concepts where you could explore, again, more adult themes and explore more, again, a more adult style content with, again, harder material, heavier material. This is what they could have turned Cartoon Network in, but sadly, Ted Turner's vision was limited in the beginning, and sadly, Jim Samples wasn't really having much of a vision for that network the way I would have had a vision. Now, a Sean James Cartoon Network would have had cartoons for every age and every type of person. And again, for the later hours, I would have again scheduled some cartoons that would have had more adult themes and had done cartoons that were more things like dramas or more things like, again, a bit more of a drama comedy, something that would have taken the art form of animation to another level, something that would have shown how this art form could have evolved. But sadly, as things have gone on, Cartoon Network is basically on a state of decline. They basically closed the Cartoon Network studios, I think, in LA, and have merged them into the Warner Brothers Discovery Animation division. And the Cartoon Network channel, basically online, basically their website has been merged into HBO Max, and it's basically like the days of Cartoon Network winding up, folding, and sadly Cartoon Network's content has basically become more and more limited, and I don't know if Cartoon Network will be able to survive with Warner Brothers Discovery struggling at this point. But in its peak, it was a place where you had a full channel for animation, you had a lot of licensing and merchandising going on, and you had them making movies like the Powerpuff Girls movie, the Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie, film for theaters, and the regular show movie and the Teen Titans Go movie. They were making movies, but sadly, they weren't really expanding the entire genre of American animation to have that impact. That's the sad part about the decline of Cartoon Network, is that this was an American channel that could have basically taken American animation to another level, but sadly it stagnated creatively, and it's that creative stagnation that basically, I believe, led to the decline of Cartoon Network and basically prevented us from seeing American animation actualize its potential. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation of a minimum of $15 to the PayPal or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if I can do something research on that subject, or I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. Now, you can pick up many of the books on the SJS Direct universe, which were inspired by comic books and animation, and you can find those books in the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my Black Sorority novel, The Thetas, my vampire novel, Eternal Night. You can find all of these books, which have a lot of inspiration from comic books and animation, on Amazon.com, and you can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available, paperback and Kindle Unlimited, ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage when the goddess next door steps in the squared circle with the beast from the boss in this action-packed, all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event, in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Now available in paperback at e-readers, ISIS, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.